Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's Zen and Zazen class. Has anybody, how do you say, contacted Schwansan and applied for the retreat? No applications, Schwansan? No? Sorry for that. It was a little bit of short notice. But anybody who didn't hear last week, there's still 3 spots for a retreat that Schwen will do in Antaiji in a week or so, 2nd of April until the 6th of April, just in case you happen to be in Japan at that time, or you're still free and maybe plan to go on a holiday. That would be an opportunity because Eko-san doesn't take any more long-term residents this year, and also May and July are booked out. But in case you can't participate in the retreat, at least you have the Monday Zoom sitting. So welcome once more, and today I will talk about Sawaki Roshi's quotes from this book to you. But before that, let's sit together for 30 minutes. Thank you everybody for joining. So today I would like to talk about Sawaki Roshi's quotes from the book to you. And if you have the printed version, we are on page 51. I would like to read the remaining 5 quotes from chapter 9. The first one is, in the world, isn't what we call good or bad, true or false, more or less the same thing? That's the first quote. Isn't what we call good or bad, true or false, more or less the same thing? Number 2, you've got to stand on solid feet, no matter what direction the wind might blow. And number 3, isn't it evident that the greatest happiness consists in doing what you have to do? And number 4, not wasting your time in life means sitting stably in the right place at the right time, not missing the precise moment. And number 5, the last one for today. You can't depend on anything. The value of things changes. This insight is what motivated Shakyamuni to renounce his king's title, to leave his wife and son and become a monk. So 5 different quotes. I think the theme that connects them is stability, finding a place of stability. For example, the second quote was, you have to stand firm on your feet, no matter from which direction the wind blows. And then there was this other quote, number 4, not wasting your time in life means sitting stably in the right place at the right time, not missing the precise moment. What does this mean, to sit stably in the right place at the right time? I think it also has to do something with, Sawaki says in the middle quote, number 3, isn't it evident that the greatest happiness consists in doing what you have to do? At first that might sound surprising, because usually think happiness means that we do what we want to do. I'm free to do whatever I please. That's what we think is happiness. And Sawaki Roshi says, no, happiness means to basically follow necessity. To follow necessity, to not resist necessity. And I think that's what in the following quote he means by sitting in the right place at the right time. Basically realizing that you were born just at the right time of history, in the right place, at the right person. And that the life that you had was actually the best that you could have. Although, of course, if we compare with other people's lives, we never have the best one. There's always people that seem to have it better. But the greatest amount of happiness you can ever accomplish is by totally accepting what you got. Radical acceptance, maybe you would say. Sitting stably at the right place at the right time means radical acceptance of this life that you had. Life, getting older, becoming sick and dying. Where's happiness in that? The Buddha himself says that's dukkha, that's suffering. But accepting that, that's exactly the dukkha I needed. The biggest difficulties with these 5 ones probably I had with the first one. Let me read it once more. In the world isn't what we call good or bad, true or false, more or less the same thing. Well, there are many ways to make sense of that, and Sawaki Roshi already said certain things that went in the same direction. For example, if it would rain tomorrow, would that be good or would it be bad? Some people would say, that would be bad. I'm going on a trip tomorrow. I don't want it to rain. But maybe you're a farmer and it hasn't rained for a couple of weeks. And then, of course, you would say, well, that would be great. I want it to rain. Or maybe the forest is burning. You're praying that it might rain and that the rain will put out the fire. So is fire or is rain good or bad? Well, it depends on the situation. It depends on the perspective you take. Or Sawaki Roshi said, well, some people say he's a good guy, but what do they mean? He can drink 2 liters of sake, but does this make you a good person? You can be a good thief, but especially exactly that makes you a bad person in the eyes of somebody else. And so also good and bad depends on the perspective. And from a religious point of view, I think there's maybe people who say something similar in Christianity. And there's a school in Buddhism called Pure Land Buddhism that's pretty strong in Japan, where they say better than a good person is a bad person. Why is that? Because the bad person knows that he or she is bad. Only a bad person can show remorse. While the good person, good people think they're good. They are full of themselves. It's harder for a good person to let go of their ego than for a bad person, because the bad person has nothing to be proud of. While good people, they are proud of themselves and they even want to teach others to be just as good as they are. So even with good or bad, in the religious sense, you could say, well, what is good from one standpoint can actually be the worst thing. And what is really bad from a different point of view can be pretty good. And the reason why I said that the biggest problems is because, well, especially in recent years, for example, so-called alternative facts. Everybody has their own facts and everybody seems to think I have the right not only for my own opinion, but for my facts. You call those facts, I call my facts. Basically, what are facts in the first place? Isn't it all pretty much the same? Isn't it all the same? Good. Some people say it's good, some people say it's bad. Isn't it all pretty much the same? So probably I'm not the only one who in recent years has a little bit the feeling that we're going pretty far in the direction of what you could call relativism. Good and bad, true and false are only relative. It all depends on the perspective. And of course it does depend on the perspective. But that doesn't mean that there's no difference between good or bad, true or false. So I think, of course, it's important to see the difference, that there's a difference, but also be aware that what I call good and what I call bad is only what I call good and bad. I make my own criteria. I'm judging from my point of view, and somebody else might judge from a different point of view. That doesn't mean that there's you have just as good reason to believe that the earth is flat than to believe that we are living on a globe. In that case, at the end of the day, I would believe in science. So I don't think it's more or less the same thing. I don't think that's more or less the same thing. But I think I see, and I think you can also see the point that Sawaki Roshi tries to make here. Don't trust your own human standards too much. Last quote there, he said, you can't depend on anything, even what you call good or bad, true or false. At the end of the day, you're a deluded being, so don't be so sure of your judgments. You can't depend on anything. The value of things changes. And of course, it also depends on the time. What was good at one time can be bad at another, and the other way around. This insight is what motivated Shakyamuni to renounce his king's title, to leave his wife and son and become a monk. And that's what Sawaki Roshi means by, well, doing what you have to do. You have to do. The other day on my German YouTube channel, I got this question, should I go to the monastery? Basically, my answer was, well, if you have to ask yourself, or if you have to ask Muho, if you have to ask me, then the answer is certainly no. Only go to the monastery if you have to, if you have no other choice. If you know, I have no other option, then you must go. And then that's the greatest liberty you have. But if you wonder, maybe I should go to the monastery, but maybe I should stay with my girlfriend, and I don't really want to participate in the rat race, but also I'm a little bit worried about what I'm gonna live from once I leave the monastery and I get older. In that case, maybe you should go to the monastery, but this way or the other, you have to find your place. And basically, that's the place where you already are, and you have to find your path in life, and that's the one that you are already proceeding on right now. It's just that you have to realize, this is my path, this is my place, this is my time. There couldn't be any other. This is the best time because there's no other option for me than to live now in this place as this person. Okay, so much from my side. Well, we still have plenty of time, so if you have questions or anything you would like to share, please do so. Any questions? Anything you would like to ask or share? Nothing? If not, I can also continue with the next chapter.
I've got a question about the precepts, I suppose.
Okay, yes, please.
Yeah, where do they come from if good and evil is only like an opinion? Like, where's their like basis? Is there something universal?
Is there something universal? I mean, the universal thing about the precepts, the idea is to cause a minimum of suffering for yourself and others. Because we don't want to suffer, others don't want to suffer either. The precepts, one thing is they help to reduce suffering. The other thing is they make practice easier. But last week I was talking about drinking alcohol. The topic was the precious mirror samadhi, and there was this story about Hakuin, a famous Rinzai monk in Japan, who had his doubt about this text. He was asking a question to his teacher. This teacher didn't want to answer, and then he asked a senior student, please can you ask my teacher in my place? So the senior student went to the teacher, he got an answer, and when he went back to Hakuin, Hakuin asked him, what did he tell you? And he said, well, I won't tell you unless you give me some rice wine. I need to drink some rice wine before. And in the end, both Hakuin and his Dharma brother ended up completely drunk. And the Dharma brother didn't even have to tell Hakuin what he had heard from the teacher. He got it from the rice wine. Anyway, last week somebody asked, but I heard that the Buddha said you shouldn't drink alcohol. And that's true, of course, because it doesn't always help. But then, especially in Zen, it's often said, well, don't be attached to the precepts as well. The precepts are there to help you and to help others, but if it becomes an object of attachment, I must not break the precepts. Or also kind of what I said about good and bad. You might think a monk that breaks the precepts is a bad monk, and a person that keeps to the precepts is a good person. And now the danger is you keep to the precepts. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. I didn't break the precepts. But the precept is there to help you with practice, to help you let go of your ego. But what happens when you get attached to the precepts and you do your best to keep them, so you succeed in keeping them? You have this strong ego. Look at me, I kept the precepts. Look at that guy, he's breaking the precepts. But maybe the bad guy who's breaking the precepts is much more humble, and for him it's much easier to let go of his ego. And so again, I said that last week as well. I'm not saying that it's okay not to keep the precepts. You must keep to the precepts. And at the same time, don't be attached to the precepts. Don't be attached to the thought, I must keep to the precepts. I don't know, does this say anything to your question? Does it answer your question?
I
Not
think
really.
so. I think I've got some things to sit with there.
Okay. And if you have more questions next week, you can ask more about the precepts. Anything else you would like to ask or share? Joseph, please.
I really enjoyed the quotes today, so thank you. How radical should the radical self-acceptance be, or how radical can it be? I remember when I first became sort of seriously interested in Buddhism, I read there's a sutta from the Pali Canon. Unfortunately, I can't remember the exact name, but it's talking about, I presume, a sort of teaching from the Buddha, where he's talking to his monks and saying, even if you're held hostage by bandits and they have a blade to your throat, you should still be filled with loving compassion and kindness for them. And I remember reading that and thinking, oh, well, damn, I don't think I can do that. And, you know, those kind of, very radical examples you sometimes hear in sutras or suttas seem impossible, and also perhaps not necessarily moral or good advice. So perhaps a slightly simple question, or a slightly too complicated question, but how radical should the radical self-acceptance be?
You probably know this, what is it called? The prayer of solemnity by this American theologian Reinhold Niebuhr, I think his name was. And I think it starts with, God, please give me the solemnity to accept the things that I don't change, and give me the courage to change what I can change and must change, and give me the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. And I think acceptance is what in this prayer is number one. Those things that you can't change, the ideal is to accept it. And if you are in chain and somebody is tormenting you to death, it's probably impossible for us to say, oh, I wish for his happiness. I wish that this person also in a future life will become enlightened, and maybe even say thank you that this person is allowing me to practice letting go of myself. But that would be the ideal. So the sutras, I think, are right that the ideal in a case where you can't change your fate, you can't change yourself, and you can't change the world around you, radical acceptance, there's no limit to it. While in the point of what Niebuhr says, things that I can change or must change, there's no need to accept them. And probably the Buddha would agree, like if you have difficulties to get up in the morning to practice meditation with the rest of the Sangha, well, you need to get up. You need to change that. Or if there's injustice in the world and you can change that, of course, you should do your best to change that. And the problem, that's point 3, is in many cases we don't know the difference between what we need to accept. We think, well, I'm a lazy person, I need to accept that. And also my family, my friends, they just need to accept that I sleep until noon every day. I can't change that. Nobody can expect me to stop drinking or smoking. While we always want to change the others. I want to change my neighbor, or we want to change the past. Things that we can never change, we want to change. And my future self, myself, those things that I can change, we never change. So yeah, I think you get the point. I see a connection here between this prayer of solemnity and Christianity and the wisdom of the Buddha. Those things that you must accept, or those things that you can't change, accept them, and there's no limit there. Even if people slice you up, if you can't change it in that moment, accept it. Of course, if you can change it, then say, hey, wait a minute, you have no right to slice me up. I don't want to suffer, just as you don't want to suffer.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything else you would like to share? Simon is raising his hand. I can't hear you though. You're unmuted, but I can't hear your voice. There seems to be a problem with your microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now,
Oh,
now
okay.
it works.
Cool. In one of your recent interviews, you spoke about the trap of mindfulness. So you said something like, when we try to be mindful of an action, we split ourselves into the observer and the action.
Yes.
So I was wondering, then what's the right way to practice in everyday life?
Simply said, to become one with what you do. So, of course, it's good to be, well, mindful in a natural way, rather than washing the dishes in an unmindful way. You're washing the dishes, but your mind is somewhere else. Of course, it's good to be mindful when you wash the dishes. But then there's this, what I call the trap, that after some time, you develop this habit of always trying to be extra mindful. So you're washing the dishes, but you try to be very, very mindful. You're chewing your meal, but you're very, very mindful, and you completely forget about your whole environment. So once you get out of the habit of doing everything in an unmindful way, and you develop a natural feeling for what it means to be mindful, then I would say, and I wrote that in one of my articles also on the website of Antaji, stop being mindful. That means when you do the dishes, just do the dishes. Don't do them mindfully, in quotation marks, but just do the dishes. When you drink your soup, don't drink it mindfully, just drink your soup. When you sit in Zazen, don't sit mindfully, just sit. Just sit. That would be my simple answer. Try to be one with what you do, and even stop trying. As long as you try to be one, you're not really one. So just do whatever you do. Anything else that you would like to ask or share? If not, it's almost 9 o'clock here in Japan, so I would like to thank you. Next week I get back to the precious mirror Samadhi, April 1st. Shwen, you still have time next Monday. Okay, and after that would be Shwen's retreat in Antaiji, but I think the Monday after that she's gonna be back. So next week, Precious Mirror Samadhi, and then in 2 weeks I get back to chapter 10 of this book. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you Shwen for hosting us. Have a nice week and hope to see you again.